Anwar Ibrahim, thank you for joining me on Upfront. This year has been a bit of a roller coaster for you, hasn't it? In May, you were released from prison after 3 years behind bars on what are widely considered to have been trumped-up charges. Your opposition coalition defeated the ruling BN coalition for the first time in 60 years and is now in charge. And you're widely considered to be the Prime Minister in waiting. Did you think 6 months ago that this is where you'd be today?
Certainly not, Mehdi. I was optimistic that we will secure victory, but I did not envisage this much enthusiasm expressed by the Malaysians, and the fact that now I'm a free man.
And you're not just a free man, you're the de facto leader of Malaysia's new ruling coalition, the Pakatan Harapan coalition. You've joined forces with Mahathir Mohamad, the former Prime Minister, now Prime Minister again, who's gone from being your ally to your arch-enemy to your ally again. He's the man who supported your first conviction and imprisonment on these ludicrous corruption and sodomy charges, many said were politically motivated. How can you trust a man like that? How can you work again with a man like that?
Mahathir is now 92. He came up to me and said, Anwar, let's work together to save the country and rid the country of corruption, abuse of power. I took time. It is not a personal arrangement between Anwar and Mahathir, but he has shown remarkably well in terms of defending and the reform agenda. And now he has shown his commitment to the reform. And I have no reason to suspect other motives, because at that age, with that commitment, I think we should then allow him. And for the last 4 months, we have been proven right. He seems to be consistent, effective, and that's why I and the party support him totally.
You say you support him totally. The coalition's plan, I believe, is that he will remain Prime Minister for 1 or 2 years and then cede the premiership to you. Not only does that make you a Prime Minister in waiting, it also means that all of your future is dependent on basically Mahathir's goodwill, on Mahathir sticking to his word. What makes you so confident that he'll step down? Because even he said it's not fixed in stone, it's not kind of written in blood. There's no way you can force him to stand down if he doesn't want to, if he wants to stay on till he's 100.
You continue to harass him when he's going to resign. Naturally, his response would be, let me stay, I have a task to perform. But what is important, Mehdi, is there was a written agreement signed in 2015 by all the leaders. And I see no reason why I should even demand or harass him to resign earlier, because I think what he's doing now is important, and I have at least some latitude myself to go around, meet old friends, relax a bit, enjoy myself as a free man.
You say that you're enjoying yourself and relaxing, and yet when you were released in May, you said you weren't interested in a cabinet position in Mahathir's government. You said, quote, you wanted to take some time with the family, some space. You said you wanted to go on speaking tours, and yet now you've announced you're going to run for parliament in a by-election. What changed your mind? You say you wanted to relax, but it looks like you're desperate to get back into politics quickly and I guess be Prime Minister sooner than later.
Mehdi, I was in prison a total 10.5 years. What do you do? Read and relax. Now, 4 months have passed since the last elections, and I think it's time for me to enter Parliament to assist in parliamentary reform. My understanding with Mahathir is that you conduct the affairs of the state, but let me then ensure that parliamentary reforms is effective.
As of today, September 2018, who do you think the majority of Malaysians would prefer to be their Prime Minister? You, Anwar Ibrahim, or Mahathir Mohamad?
Well, there's no surveys conducted, but I'm happy that Mahathir is now the Prime Minister. He has a major task. We need a tough, a firm leader for now, and he's doing extremely well. I wouldn't mind if Malaysians generally endorse that. I think he is immensely popular, and I would grant that. I don't have qualms about it. I don't need to be an apologist to suggest otherwise.
It's been called one of the world's biggest financial scandals, the 1MDB scandal, in which former Prime Minister Najib Razak, who is a supporter of your second imprisonment, he was arrested this week again over additional charges of abuse of power. Mahathir has called it an almost perfect case against Najib, who's also facing charges of bribery, theft of government funds, embezzlement. Mahathir says he holds Najib totally responsible for the 1MDB scandal. Do you as well?
Yes, I first raised this issue in Parliament in 2011, and I have stood by it throughout the years till I was arrested and imprisoned in 2015. That Najib was responsible. He chaired many of these meetings. He instructed clearly the authorities to then disburse the funds. And it is atrocious. I mean, it is one of the worst financial scandals involving any government. And it is therefore imperative that action, stiff action, be taken. But then since this is new government have said and assured, investigations must be professional, prosecution must not be malicious, and the judiciary must be independent. So we'll have to wait. People were getting impatient, but then we had to wait. We have to go by the due process and the law.
As someone who's been tried and convicted twice of sodomy, a sentence that can lead up to 20 years in prison, it can lead to whipping under Malaysian law, you told the Wall Street Journal back in 2012 that Malaysia's sodomy laws are, quote, archaic, that they should be amended. You said, quote, it's not my business to attack people or arrest people based on their sexual orientation. Do you still stand by that? Will Malaysia be repealing its sodomy laws once you're Prime Minister?
Yes, I've said it, I maintain this. This is not only archaic, it is the British colonial laws introduced in India and replicated in Malaysia. It is completely unjust because one can be just accused and without any proper evidence, or in my case clearly. But then what is important is if we have a case against homosexuality, then it must be done in a transparent manner. The laws must be amended to secure, to ensure there's justice in the process. And it's not a matter of sexual orientation. It's what you perform or you display publicly, which is against the norms of majority of Malaysians, not only Muslims, Christians, Hindus, Buddhists alike in this country.
Okay, well, on that note, you rightly say that it's a British colonial law, and yet last month, I mean, there is a Muslim angle as well, so many would say. Last month, the Deputy Prime Minister, Wan Aziza, who also happens to be your wife, was quoted as saying it is haram, it is forbidden for Muslims to support the LGBT community or their fight for equality in Malaysia, that they must keep their practice behind closed doors. Just a couple of days earlier, you were quoted as saying, if people have their own sexual orientation, it's up to them. Who should Malaysians, especially Muslim Malaysians, listen to on this issue? The Deputy Prime Minister, your wife, or the Prime Minister in waiting, you?
Aziza is an intelligent leader in her own right. What she said precisely was that the sexual act is haram, and that is not disputed in any Islamic text or religious text. I don't see a contradiction between my views and hers on this. We both, I have condemned even the caning of lesbians by the Islamic Party state of Terengganu, because I thought this is clearly unjust, although they use Sharia as a basis. We cannot defend such action.
Okay. I want to ask about your relationship with Turkey's President, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. In a recent interview, you described Erdogan as, quote, the most popular leader among Muslims of Malaysia and outside Malaysia because of his position on Palestine and what happened in the Middle East. You said, quote, very few leaders of the world would have that courage to go and fight for justice like him. So does that mean that when you're Prime Minister, you'll be governing in a similar way to Erdogan? Is he your role model as a leader?
He's a friend. I support some of his policies, and I think given the atrocious conditions in the Muslim world run by dictators, I think it is something, a breath of fresh air to see the success in Indonesia and in Turkey, and in some ways, hopefully, Imran Khan in Pakistan. So I'm looking at that way in the positive manner. I'm not in the position to defend all of their policies. Remember that he experienced a coup d'etat that cost lives, including a very close brother of mine who was killed in that coup attempt.
I think the coup attempt has been condemned all around the world, but human rights groups point out that Erdogan's crackdown on his critics since the coup, locking up tens of thousands of soldiers and government officials, sacking thousands of judges and teachers, shutting down news organizations, restricting free speech, that these are abuses of power, these are human rights abuses. You don't condemn any of these crackdowns on the free press, on human rights groups like Amnesty?
Clearly, you are ignoring the hypocrisy in some of the foreign policy position taken even by the United States immediately after the attempted coup. Everybody knows that.
I'm not. It's not about the US. I've interviewed many US officials. I don't think anyone could accuse me of going soft on the US. I'm asking
what
about
I'm saying,
the crackdown in Turkey.
No.
Will you
Let me
condemn
finish,
that?
because there must be
Yes.
not only the US, Mahdi. I'm talking about the crimes against humanity committed by many of the other Muslim countries were largely ignored because they were timid and complicit with some of the American policies. Now, let's go back. Your question is whether he overreacted after the coup. I would say yes, but I think given time, he should ease. And that's what my personal views expressed to him. But then to ignore the fact that there were hundreds of people killed, this is, to me, unacceptable.
One last question, Anwar Ibrahim. You've said you forgive Najib Razak for what he did to you. You've obviously forgiven Mahathir, who you're now working alongside. There's not many people, there's not many politicians who, being in the position you're in now, would be talking forgiveness. They'd be looking for revenge or for justice, at least. How hard was it for you to forgive these people who helped lock you up? And where does that forgiveness come from?
Well, it's a very painful process. It wasn't easy. But finally, we talk about the country. We talk about justice. Yes, we talk about compassion. And from my religious beliefs, what is the relevance of religion if you do not promote compassion and willing to forgive? Me, Aziza, and my children had to suffer all these years, 2 decades. It's a long time, and we did suffer. But then, between these sufferings and the country which is at stake, I choose the country. And I choose the country because I believe we can all affect change with this new attitude towards peace, towards compassion, towards justice, by our willingness to forgive.
Anwar Ibrahim, thanks for joining me on Upfront.